The Democrats have control of the government after successfully running on COVID-19 relief, specifically in the Senate. Over $2,000 checks, which happen to be incredibly popular with the American people. Somewhere over 80% of the American people, 66% of Republicans say, yes, let's give people checks. It turns out this direct relief, you send it out, very, very popular, even among, like I said, some Republicans. Now, the only problem with that is that now the Democrats have control, some of their own members are undermining them, and of course is causing them to possibly underdeliver on their promises. And that's of course causing a lot of anger among regular Americans who desperately need those checks, that relief. So now, as I've pointed out plenty of times, the first problem is the $2,000 checks that were promised. Democrats ran ads saying, you elect us, you get us into power, you elect, you turn out in Georgia, Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, you vote for us, we're going to give you $2,000 checks, we're going to get them out the door immediately. Well, now we're talking about getting them out the door maybe sometime mid-March. And we also know that it's not a $2,000 check, it's a $1,400 check to build on the $600 that Trump gave you. Meaning that the Trump administration, ironically, would actually have given you more direct aid, $1,200 plus $600, that's $1,800, because that was all done under Donald Trump. $1,800 versus $1,400, obviously, you look at the math, and well, the math doesn't lie. That said, I'm not saying that, Trump wasn't awful and horrible in a million ways. He absolutely was. Don't misunderstand me. We're better off under Biden, but at the same time, understand that like both of those checks were passed under the Trump administration, and the $1,400 check will be passed under Joe Biden. Now, that said, there could be a fourth stimulus check, perhaps, maybe, one that addresses more after this, maybe through budget reconciliation. But right now, what we're looking at is the Trump administration ironically giving people more direct aid than the Biden administration is planning on doing. And that is just real bad optics. I mean, numbers don't lie, and the numbers look pretty bad for the Democrats. And so you have people that are beginning to speak out. Of course, a lot of prominent Democrats are speaking out against this. Pramila Jayapal, Progressive Caucus, you've got, Jamal Bowman, you even had Warnock and Ossoff that were not happy about this, Bernie Sanders, and many others. But now, especially since Biden and Manchin, though, Biden and Manchin are the ones that are kind of standing in the way of this. More Joe Manchin than anything, because Joe Manchin is pushing for more means testing. Biden is just saying, I'm open to more means testing. Let's just get something done. Now, that's got a lot of American citizens, people that are depending on this check, in the middle class that are pretty upset. In fact, in CNBC, they did an article here that profiled a couple of people. One of them was Marie, who, by the way, only asked to be identified by her middle name in order to protect her privacy. She says her budget has been stretched thin as a result of the coronavirus. Quote, the mother of two's employers had actually reduced her salary by 15%. She no longer picks up extra income as a part-time Uber driver due to safety concerns, and she had to pay for her son's daycare in order to keep his spot, despite the fact that he was at home with her at the beginning of the pandemic. And so there's several different things here. For one, reducing her pay by 15%. What? Why are they not paying her full? If she's working, why not? All right. Not only that, but of course, there's the side gig, the gig economy. That's also another problem. And of course, the daycare. Daycare is incredibly, prohibitively expensive. If only we had a program for like universal daycare, right? Which would be fantastic. Now, she says she's accrued about $4,000 in debt over the course of the pandemic and is currently 2 months late on her daycare payments. And so $4,000, again, even before the pandemic, you had 40% of Americans that couldn't afford a $400 emergency. She's got a $4,000 emergency. Now, she is understandably terrified that she will no longer qualify for if the Democrats decide to go with targeted checks. Now, she earned about $60,000 back in 2019. That's the tax year that they're basing it off of, which is insane because, again, 2019, Now 2020 was a really, really bad year. Maybe we should start basing it off 2020. Now, the Washington Post reported that heads of household earning up to $75,000 would still qualify for the full $1,400 payments under the new thresholds. But that's important because we are talking about optics here, though. Sometimes those details get lost, all right? What means testing does is it allows those details to get lost. Things end up being convoluted and really unnecessary, and it creates confusion. Means tests, generally not good. So Marie doesn't even know she's even going to get the money. And again, basing it off of her, 2019 taxes, when she's had a full year of living through this pandemic, which has impacted a lot of people's money, their financial situation in a very negative way, it's just not good. So now, here's what she said. She says, I was banking on that money. The fact that they're changing it and setting this strict cutoff is totally unreasonable for anybody who lives in a high cost of living area. It is wrong. Taking money away from people who you've promised after you promised it to them is not the way to start, says Marie, referring to the fact that Democrats now control the White House, House of Representatives, and the Senate. Quote, I think this is a horrible plan that threatens security to many people. And none of what she says is wrong. It's terrible, terrible politics, terrible optics. All right, there's another one. Brian Jensvold, a 32-year-old IT specialist in Oregon. He made just about $60,000 a year. Now, he is also concerned. Jensvold says it's short-sighted for politicians to base stimulus check eligibility off 2019 income when millions of lives changed dramatically in 2020. It would be better if some people who don't need the money got a payment rather than those who need it to be left out completely, he says. True. 100%. I would rather we give everybody a $2,000 check, and if you made too much, just tax the person back to $2,000. That's it. It's literally that easy. At the end of the year, just be like, oh, by the way, if you made above this much, we are going to tax you that much. Now, the reason not to do this targeting, as I said, is sometimes you might miss somebody. Somebody's going to fall through the cracks because of this, additional means testing. And I would rather families get a check that they don't need than for someone to slip through those cracks. And it also, by the way, gets it out to people faster. And so, that aid gets into people's hands sooner and gets spent on groceries, bills, gas, whatever they need to spend it on in order to survive, rent. But the problem here, again, isn't really just Republicans. Yes, Republicans are, of course, a problem. Republicans always want to give you less, way, way less. But the Republicans are not in power anymore. We don't actually need them to do this. We have the power of budget reconciliation. Again, Bernie Sanders is the chairman of the budget committee. He can do budget reconciliation, which does not require any Republican votes. Just a simple majority, and we could do that. But of course, that means that we have to kiss Joe Manchin's ass. Now that is a problem, because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are one of the people that are calling for even more targeted means-tested checks, right? I really think that Joe Manchin needs to shut up and just vote for it anyway, pass this without more means testing. There's no reason for him to do that other than to feel, self-important. Like, oh, I've got this power now because you need my vote. Suddenly now I am super important. No, Joe Manchin, you're never important. Joe Manchin, you're a terrible person, a terrible human being, terrible politician, and you need to get primaried, 100%. Before that happens, unfortunately, he's not gonna, his term's not gonna be up until like 2024. We're going to have to find other ways to do so, to put the pressure on him. And one of the ways comes from Bernie Sanders, actually, who said this, without mentioning him, by the way. Unbelievable. There are some Dems who want to lower the income eligibility for direct payments from $75,000 to $50,000 for individuals and $150,000 to $100,000 for couples. In other words, working class people who got checks from Trump would not get them from Biden. Brilliant. Yes, brilliant messaging from Democrats. We promised you more, but we will actually give you less. Thanks for electing us, suckers, over Donald Trump. No, we're going to give you less. Now, again, I'm not saying you should have voted for Donald Trump. No, that's not what I'm saying. Right? Donald Trump, again, is a disaster in a million different ways, understand. But that's what the message that it sends out. And so it almost feels like Democrats want to lose on this issue. And it's just awful, disastrous messaging. So now there's more here. Let me go to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Here's what she's tweeted. Quote, "It would be outrageous if we ran on giving more relief and ended up doing the opposite. It's sad that this is even an argument in the Dem Party. COVID relief is disaster relief, and it's urgent. Our first act out of the gate should be big, bold, and strong, not weaker and smaller." She followed it up with another tweet saying, "In conclusion, 50K is whack, and we shouldn't do whack things." 100%. Not if you want to actually win in 2022 or 2024, or help the most amount of people, which is the biggest, most important thing here. I cannot understand how and why the Democrats are literally trying to sabotage themselves. They are shooting themselves in the foot with this whole thing, this whole means testing talk. Now, one more here. This is Cheryl Carpenter, a 72-year-old Illinois resident. Now, she is an adult dependent on her daughter's taxes and did not qualify for the first two checks under Trump. She would have actually been helped by this. But she tells CNBC that she was so excited and happy when President Biden proposed including all dependents in the third round, which is great. I'm totally in favor of that. But then says, well, with the income limits, she worries that her entire family will now end up being left out. I thought, oh, wow, here's a chance for me to stock up on my groceries and get a few extra things for myself and not have to be pinching every penny to do it, says Carpenter. I'm not asking for the world. I thought I was going to have a little extra money. And by the way, before you argue against that, remember, this is supposed to be a stimulus check. They keep calling it stimulus. In reality, it's a survival check because a stimulus check would stimulate spending on consumer goods, which of course stimulates job creation, et cetera, et cetera. This is not what this is. This is survival checks, buying groceries, paying rent, all that stuff that doesn't necessarily get cycled back into the economy or have as much of an impact on direct job creation as a bigger stimulus would. But again, to be fair, the House Democrats did pass a version without this stuff. So House Democrats, great work. Pelosi and AOC and House Democrats, the Progressive Caucus, excellent work. Excellent work. You passed what, the same, the $1,400 checks with the same kind of income limits as before. The problem here is the Senate, okay, where you've got Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and others whose votes are needed. But again, they're pushing these ridiculous limits. And what Joe Biden is doing is not helping because he's saying that he's open to negotiation on that. Where if he took a strong stance and said, no, we're not going to deliver less than Trump. We're going to deliver more than Donald Trump because, you know what? You elected us to help. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And Biden needs to take that. But unfortunately, he's pushing that means testing too because he wants everything to be bipartisan. And so that doesn't help. And if the House version doesn't get through and millions of people who are, middle-class people are struggling right now and did get good checks under Trump but won't get them under Biden, what do you think is going to happen when the midterms come around? They're going to be pissed. They're going to remember who helped them and who didn't help them. And so be warned, Democrats, be smart about this, or else you're going to lose, and you're going to lose big. Don't make this mistake again, like you did in 2008, 2009. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.